Hi everyone, and welcome to my archiving video. In today's video, I'm going to show you all the little nooks and crannies I go into to archive my artwork so that I can remember it forever. Some of this might seem tedious, but I have two perspectives onto why I think this video is important. If you're an artist, it's very important that you archive your work. It's very important to have a record of your growth, and also you never know when, you might want to make a book about all the work you've done, and if you only take iPhone photos, you can't print them out. Archiving is a record of all of your hard work, and so it's really important to be able to look back at what you've done and be proud of it, and also be proud of your growth. So not all artists are in the same stage of their career, and it might be tempting to think, oh, it's not that important for me to archive, or that it's just not a priority because you're focusing more on growth and development. But it really is important because you can see that growth if you archive properly. And the earlier you get started, the better you'll be at either refining your process of archiving or just being aware of how to do it. And the more of a habit you'll be in, so that as you continue to grow, your archiving habits will just be second nature, and you won't have to think too hard about your archiving process. Now, from another perspective, I think this video is interesting because I think that for a lot of collectors or just non-artists, they don't see this side of how art is made. And it's really important to think about, I do all these processes after I finish a piece of work, and it's all part of the work that makes that art. And I have people say to me, oh, how long did it take you to make that? Which is a very limited question, because the time to actually make a piece and then all of the other work that goes around, creating an archive and making sure it's documented, but also just put away properly and all that stuff, that's all part of the work. And it's like unseen hours that people don't realize are there. So I just think it's an interesting perspective from the non-artist point of view. So with all that said, let's get into it. The first thing I do after I finish a piece is to look in my personal database to look up the title of the last one, so I can appropriately title the new one. I've been using this app called Unfold for this, and lately it's been behaving strangely. Specifically, it's not updating the display of photos in their gallery view, so I have to open each individual document to get a visual of the piece, which is essentially the only thing I'm using this app for at this point. And if I scroll further down, all of the images are just using Unfold stock photos. I've just started using Notion for my database now. Basically, when I hit the 600th permutation, yay, 600th permutation. When I hit the 600th permutation, it seemed like a good time to transition. So now I have this old database with Unfold and a new database with Notion. And I think it's gonna work out. I don't think I'm gonna go back and re-enter all my old permutations into the new Notion database. Who knows, maybe one day I'll get really bored and decide I really need to do it, but for now I might just keep the two separate. Unfold is actually an app designed for creating social media posts, and it allows the creator to add text and stuff to a document with the photo included in it. And I used to use it when I lived in China, to make little sale posters for their social media app called WeChat, which is like the biggest social media app in China. And that's how I would sell my work there. And then for a while I was using it to create PDFs of my work because I didn't yet have a website. But then I moved to Adobe InDesign, and I used that for a while, but I have since canceled my subscription to Adobe. So now I have a website, which you may not have seen. If you haven't, it's in the link. And that is obviously the best way to share my artwork. But having PDFs was pretty useful for a while. And so all of this just really illustrates that it's really good to develop an archiving process that you think will work for you, and to always be open to refining it. And you know, it's really clear to me now that all of the processes I had put into place were really just like stopgaps. And that's part of the reason why I'm making this video, is because I think it's I think it'll be useful for people to learn from my mistakes. And I've really come to appreciate how important it is to have a personal archive, not for public consumption, just so you can keep track of your artwork. So on the back sides of all my pieces, I write the title, my printed name, the date, and the city in which it was made. I was once told by my friend Amber, who's an art conservator, that having the artist's name clearly printed will allow people in the future to discover provenance much more easily than a signature, which, like mine for example, is just usually not really legible. Just interestingly, I've created permutations in Chicago, Shanghai, San Francisco, Tuyamut, where I live now, Florence, Kentucky, and I think maybe one or two in Seattle, Washington. I just think it'll be interesting in the future to look at where each piece was made and see how the environment may have affected my work, my processes. My friend also told me I should write the brand names of all the materials I use on my pieces, but I don't do that. I think if I charged more for my work, I would go that extra mile. But especially on pieces where I use like 5 different pen colors and 10 different paint colors, it would just be too much extra labor. But I do think that if you're very conscientious about your art's legacy, it's something you should consider. After a piece is signed and the provenance info is on the back, I take it to an area with excellent indirect light and I use my iPhone to photograph it. More recently, I've been taking shots that include close-ups and the media used, like brushes and pens and rulers in the picture, and then with my hand in it to show scale. And then after I take these photos, I edit them using Apple's photo editor. I typically focus on making sure the image is cropped correctly and that the color and contrast look like the art itself, like what it looks like in real life. It really serves no one if you enhance the photo in any way. If the buyer thinks they're getting like this wildly vibrant piece and it arrives to them and it's duller than the photo, you've created this unrealistic expectation. And many of my collectors have purchased more than one piece, and I at least partially attribute this to me representing myself as best as I can online. So I never make my photos look better than they are in real life. If anything, I'm often told that the pieces look better in person than they do in the photos, and I think that creates like a really good, I think that if they felt misled the first time they purchased, they wouldn't make a second one. And that said, I don't really spend a ton of time making sure the color correction is perfect. Again, I don't know that it matters that much. I just don't want I don't want to make the pieces look better than they look in real life. So after editing, I transfer the photos to my computer using AirDrop. I have my settings on my phone to save images in Apple's HEIC format, which allows them to be a little bit more compressed so they don't take up as much space on your phone, but then they're unreadable by other programs. So after I transfer them, I've built this thing, what's called a quick action in Apple's Finder, and it converts the HEIC files to JPEGs. Then I rename each file, and if they're like the detail ones or whatever, I add words like detail and hand as needed. And then I transfer them from the download folder to my all permutations folder on my computer. So that's one digital archive that's like not easy to sift through, but I keep all of my images in one folder. Then I have to go to my Squarespace account and add the piece as a product of my store. Fortunately, this process is pretty quick since I do it often enough that I know what to expect and it's just kind of in my head. My biggest challenge is usually creating some sort of flavor description for the pieces. Sometimes I just sit there trying to think of something clever, but also sometimes it's really easy too. For many pieces, I also do photo shoots with myself holding up the art. This too is for scale, but it's also to vary up my Instagram feed so you can see my lovely face. That's supposed to be really popular. Well, not my face, but showing pictures of people in Instagram feeds is supposed to be like supposed to make people happy or like the photos. So these photos are also for scale, but they are also good for my Instagram feed. I use my DSLR camera for these photo shoots and a remote. I also try to dress up a bit, so these shoots tend to happen sporadically and not every time I finish a piece. And the room where I take these photos doesn't have an air conditioner, and it's really hot in there, so I can only do so many at a time, which is kind of okay because it ensures that I don't have too many photos of me in the same exact outfit. I have to mention though that since I've moved so much in the last 5 years, I don't own that many clothes, so it's a little hard not to do repeats. But at least my colors are all on brand. So I don't have a scanner, and I've just started the process of using my DSLR to take high resolution photos of my work. The setup is obviously more laborious than having just a scanner, but I can take images of my larger pieces, and I'm hoping that there will be some payoff. I think it's really important to have high resolution documentation of your work, and I will say it sometimes really drives me nuts that I don't have a high res image of every single piece I've made. It would give me a lot of comfort if I had that, but I don't. One thing I'm excited about with these high resolution images is I'm gonna start creating more merchandise with my images on them. And I've already released my first t-shirt with permutation number 597. So the link to my website is in the bio, and that shirt's right at the top. I have both a women's and a men's shirt, and just look through the merchandise section of my website and you can see that new shirt. So whenever I take photos with my DSLR, I shoot in the RAW format. This leaves the image in a sort of like really dull state, but that state is optimal for allowing programs like Photoshop or Affinity Photo, which is what I use, to really be able to manipulate the image. It's also good for things like removing smudges on the wall behind me. Shooting in the RAW format allows you to edit in Photoshop or Affinity Photo, which is what I use, more easily. I don't know exactly how it works technologically speaking, but apparently it's just easier to play with the shadows and the colors in that format. I am by no means a professional photo retoucher, but I feel like every time I edit from RAW photos, I get better at it, and it's a good skill to have. So after I finish cleaning up the RAW images, I delete them. I save versions of them for the web or high-res versions, and then I delete the RAW versions because they take up a lot of space. So whenever I do these photo shoots of me holding up artwork, I have to remember to then upload them to my website because it's like usually weeks later after I've posted the original image on the website. And I think it just looks better to have those images on the website. And then I also have to transfer images to my phone so that when I want to post them on Instagram, they're ready for that. So finally, once all of that archiving is done, I package my pieces in these cellophane bags with backing boards. This protects pieces from dust and from getting bent and anything else that might be floating around in my apartment. You never know. Since my studio and my apartment is the same place, it's just like twice as many things that could just like fly around and get on stuff. So I always make sure that my stuff's protected. So that's all the stuff I do with my work after the work is done. It's a lot of stuff, isn't it? I hope that if you're an artist, you got a little bit of insight and inspiration on things you might do differently. And if you think I forgot anything, let me know in the comments, because I definitely think maybe I forgot stuff, or things that things that I just do automatically but I forgot to post about in this video. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the little bell so you don't miss any further videos. Thank you again so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.